Welcome to the Competitive 40k podcast brought to you by Vanguard Tactics. This is a Warhammer 40k podcast where we analyse the meta and help develop strategies to help you become a competitive 40k player. I'm your host, Stephen Box, and it is our mission to raise the standard of the game both on and off the tabletop. This podcast is brought to you by the Vanguard Tactics Academy, the only online coaching course for Warhammer 40k. And the Vanguard Tactics Academy takes you through everything you need to know about 40k, from how to write the optimal army list for your faction, to advanced tactics on the tabletop and advanced game theory. We'll also teach you our step-by-step process to prepare you for any tournament. And the VT Academy will not only help you win more games in the right spirit of the game, but also help you get more value and enjoyment from your hobby. But will also help you feel more confident and comfortable every single time you step up to the table. Welcome to episode 8 of the Competitive 40k podcast, and today I'm joined with Joe. How you doing, Joe?
I'm very good, thank you.
And Joe, what are we going to be covering today?
Today, apparently some schmuck won an RTT with Blood Angels.
Yes.
And we're going to talk to him today. We're going to get him on and talk to him.
He does sound like an absolute schmuck.
Yeah. So, he's the worst.
He is the worst. There's been a bit of interest about this certain thing, though, isn't it?
Yeah. People really want to know, obviously, about your list.
Okay, yeah.
But what they really want to know is the secondaries game.
The secondaries, yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually really felt like our past 3 podcasts prepared me real well.
Yeah.
There was a good amount of preparation. And obviously the last podcast on tilting, I think I prepared for it pretty well.
Yeah.
Seeming though that I didn't have a ticket, drove down on the day, and luckily someone pulled out and I got a ticket.
Yeah.
I feel like my preparation was on point.
That's a good way to get into an event, though, isn't it?
Just rock up.
Just wait by the door like a sad child and hope that someone doesn't turn up.
And that's exactly what happened, yeah. I was going down anyway to pick up some Lumineth.
Yeah.
Cheeky AOS models, but which I was excited about. But anyway, that's not for this show. So yeah, managed to play. And this RTT around Blood Angels, the RTT was a 24-man event. However, every single 6 or group of 6 people were then separated into a small pod.
Yeah.
So you were in a different pod.
Yeah.
I was in a different pod, and there was 4 pods. 4 pods of 6.
Yeah.
So each of us played 3 games in our pods, which was great.
Yeah. Weirdly, there were a lot of knight armies there.
There were a fair few knight armies. Yeah.
I think there was one knight army in groups 1 and 2. And then groups 3 and 4, they had 2 knight armies in each.
Yeah, I didn't have any knights in mine.
You didn't have any knights in yours?
No, I'll quickly go through my pod and just wanted to say that this event was held at Entoyment, where we held our first event. Obviously, they've been working with the local council and environmental health and everything, and they put on a really good event ran by Adam Shepherd-Jones, so great job. This was an ITC ranked event, or each of the pods were. And actually, we were using the new BCP formatting of scoring on the app, which was excellent as well. So that was really, really nice to get to use that. And I can see all my data now, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
It kind of tracks all that. And then I put that data into the tracking stuff that I use, which we coach on the Academy, is how to really analyse your games to that sort of next degree, which we're going to touch on today. Yeah. So in my pod was the following people. So it's myself, and then 5 absolute heroes. We had a Tom, Michael, Simon, Toby, and a Mike. Yeah. And they were running Adeptus Custodes, White Scars, Drukhari, Necrons, and Orks.
So it's a fairly varied field.
Yeah, so obviously the Custodes and the White Scars, what you would typically expect in this 9th edition meta. The Drukhari was a full Coven list. Yeah. So very resilient, very hard to kill. Again, very good on the objective based. Obviously my Blood Angels, and then Necrons in Orks. And at the time of recording, obviously this is pre-Necron Codex. So probably out of all the factions there, they're probably in the worst spot.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, that was my pod.
Okay, so the first question is, what was your list?
My list, very similar to the army list that I ran on, was actually exactly the same as the army list that I ran on the channel. So on our YouTube channel where I went up against Tau, I literally just bunged that army straight in the bag and went down. So the army list was already done. And this is a very similar list to the list that I wrote for Goonhammer back when 9th edition dropped. It's still a list I thought would be good.
Yeah.
And what I've got is an assassin. I've got a collector's assassin. I then have Astrath, a librarian in Phobos armor. I then have the Sanguinal, so they're my 3 HQs.
Yep.
And then for troops, I've got 2 units of Incursors, and then I've got also 2 units of Scouts.
Yep.
1 unit of Scouts does have camo cloaks.
Was that because of points?
Yes.
You just had the points back.
Yeah. Not for any other reason, because I don't even think it ever came up. And then I had a 10-man unit of Death Company, 5 with Thunder Hammers, and then 5 with just bolt guns and chainswords. Nice. And then I had a Sanguinary Ancient, who is my Warlord, and he has the relic, the Standard of Sacrifice.
Yep.
And his Warlord trait basically makes everybody fearless. He's got a Power Fist as well. And then I've got 2 units of Sanguinary Guard, 1 unit of just 8 axes, and 1 unit of 4 fists and 4 swords.
Yep.
And that was literally just because they were the models that I had. Ideally, I'd probably take a bit of a different combination, but I'm waiting to see what the new codex brings in a few weeks, and then I'll make some adjustments based on points in what I think is efficient. And then in the fast attack, I've got 2 units of the new Outriders that came in the Indomitus box.
Yep. You also paid a CP to make your Phobos Librarian to take a Warlord trait as well, didn't you?
Yeah, so he took the Warlord trait, the Lord of Deceit, which is a Phobos Warlord and Phobos Warlord trait. And then what I also took was a relic on him, which gives him the ability to re-roll any of the dice on the charge, which is really powerful.
Yeah.
Especially now how command point re-rolls have changed. I think it's really good. And then also the other thing I've given him is the 2 powers. 1 power which gives me a 5+ invulnerable save on a unit, and then 1 which is +1 attack on another unit.
Awesome.
So yeah, that was the list.
Excellent. And it's a list that you're fairly confident with, and you run it to... I ran this through 8th edition. We're talking, obviously, I took it to the LVO, or a very similar list with a few minor changes here and there, but obviously I took it to the LVO. I then took it to a GT in which I won. I then took it to another GT where I came 5th. I lost out to the winner of that event. That was at Beachhead as well, also ran by Adam and Entoyment. That was 100 mana. The GT, which I won, and then another RTT, which was like a 60-man RTT, which I won that one as well. And again, I've kind of kept the same continuity with the list. And, I've play tested pretty much every single matchup now. The only one I haven't actually play tested against is the Orks. So that was a surprise on the day, because I don't know how that game goes, whether I'll go first or second. So that was an interesting dilemma for me to be in. But the White Scars, we'll talk about. But anyway, yeah. Excellent. So, game 1 was Overrun, which is the Dawn of War style deployment. You've got an objective in both players' deployment zones, and then there's 4 in the centre of table. And interestingly, the first game, it's a hold 2, hold 3, hold more.
Bit of a curveball, that one,
Yeah, to start off with. So who won the roll-off to deploy first?
Well, first of all, I was up against a lad called Michael. We had a great game.
Yeah, we better off start there.
And he was running White Scars.
Yes.
And I'll quickly whiz through his list. Now, basically, Michael, super nice guy. We had a fantastic game. And, Michael showed some great sportsmanship throughout the game. We had a lot of really nice back and forths. And it was a really, an absolute wonderful opponent to play against. So he had a captain on bike, a lieutenant in Phobos armor, who also had the Lord of Deceit Warlord trait.
So it's becoming popular.
He then had 2 units of Incursors, 2 units of Intercessors, 2 units of Blade Guard, a Judicer, Inceptors with the Plasma. I'm going to tell you a little story about them in a bit. 2 units of Eradicators, and a Leviathan Dreadnought in 2 Impulsors. So a pretty punchy list.
Yeah, pretty punchy, good all-rounder, take all comers kind of style. So as we did the 3 podcasts
on secondaries, and we know your take on it.
Yeah.
What were you predicting him to take against you? Because I know you like to predict what they're going to take and then counter it.
I thought he might go for Raise the Banners.
Yeah.
Because he does have some good infiltrating units.
Yep.
The mission one isn't a great one, so I didn't really think he would go for that one. But I was thinking he'll probably go for Engage in all fronts, and then along with Raise the Banners.
Yeah.
And then potentially a kill, which might be Assassinate.
Yeah.
He might have gone for, but instead he went for Deploy Scramblers, Engage in all fronts, and While we stand, we fight. The interesting one about the While we stand, we fight is that one of his impulsors is a While we stand, we fight, which was why I thought he might not take it.
Yeah, because he'd either have to hide it the whole game or not actually use it for its purpose, because, or he's just going to give it away to you, and at which point he's automatically losing 5 points off the board.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were your choices in the end?
Yeah, so my choices were Raise the Banners.
Yep.
While we stand, we fight, and Engage in all fronts.
Okay. You like While we stand, we fight was a consistent choice for you?
No, it wasn't.
No.
So we'll talk about each of these picks.
Yeah.
The reason why I went for Raise the Banners is because looking at the table, there were 2 objectives just outside of the deployment zone in which I knew I could get units onto.
Yeah.
They could stay inside the cover and then also hold that objective.
Yeah.
Because of the distance of where the terrain was placed. So I looked at the terrain setup first. There was no terrain in the middle where that objective was.
Yeah.
But that was okay because I had a plan for that. So imagine the deployment zone, guys. You've got 4 big L shapes in the corners, and then a tiny ruin that doesn't block anything in the middle, which is completely open, and then 2 huge L shapes in the middle of the table. Okay, so in my deployment zone, I've got 2 Ls I can hide in, that block line of sight, and then I've got a small thing that doesn't do anything. And then I've got, then on the side of the table, there was 2 like ammo craters or whatever they're called, containers. Yeah. But I looked at the 2 L shapes and I thought, right, I want to attack into one of those. The one I want to attack into is the one that is has the wall facing and closest to my opponent's deployment zone. So that is the L shape I'm going to want to attack into.
Yeah.
Therefore, when I won the roll off to deploy first, I put my first unit of down-aiming cursors in that L shape.
Yeah. So you're laying claim to it off the bat.
I'm laying claim, like, this is my L shape, get out.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where they went. That was crucial. But, so Raise the Banners, I thought, right, I've got 3 in my deployment zone that I can use and put up. And then what I can also do is I can stretch potentially onto another, because of the L shape where it was placed in the middle of the table, I can move out onto that objective, maybe later game, to get a banner up in my opponent's deployment zone as well, hopefully scoring me 3 to 4 banners per turn. Yeah. And if I can do well, then I'm going to be holding out. And the other good thing about banners and this one is that, again, I've got a hold 2 and hold 3.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be holding 3. And if I can try and hold more, so raising the banners does well, because I know I'm going to have to set up shop on an objective and then, control it as best as I possibly can anyway and keep it held. While we stand, we fight, I picked, because in this matchup, I was tempted to go for Bring It Down, but I'd have to kill the Leviathan and the 2 impulsors, and I thought, do you know what, there's no point. I could have gone Assassinate, but again, I'm having to play aggressive, and I didn't want to have to do that, so I thought, I don't actually need to use my characters this game at all.
No.
I can hide them all game and just let my army run itself without the use of my characters. And one of the characters I can still use, and the beauty about my list is that the 2 characters I need to use, they're not my While We Stand, We Fights.
Okay.
So the Sanguinary Ancient is super cheap, and he's my Warlord, and he gives me my rerolls to the Sanguinary Guard, along with the 5+ Feel No Pain. So actually, I don't need him at all. I can use him in the game still, but Ashtaroth, the Sanguinor, the Collector's Assassin, I can keep hidden.
So with deployment done, the important roll-off.
Yeah.
To see who goes first, because that determines what happens with your Death Company.
Yeah.
And it determines what you're doing with your Master of Deceit Warlord trait.
Yeah, so this was interesting because I put the 2 units of scouts in the backfield objectives, and then I just bundled my Collector's Assassin, all my characters, and all my Sanguinary Guard, and all my bikes right down in the middle of the table.
Yep.
Out in the open. Completely exposed, out in the open, on that middle objective in mind, which was that exposed. And then I had my Phobos Librarian and then my 2 units of Incursors in that same building, in that L shape, the one I wanted to lay claim to. And I can't remember if I won the roll-off or not for who placed the first unit, but I know my opponent Michael did exactly the same with his Incursors. He placed them into the other L shape that sort of had the symmetry to mine. I played the Death Company straight on the table on the front line.
Yeah.
So I didn't put any units into tactical reserve whatsoever.
Okay.
And then what I did first of all was just move my Death Company. So I won the roll-off to go first.
Yeah.
And then the Death Company moved forward. And I had a fleeting moment where I thought this game's going to go really bad. Because my first roll of the game is a 1 to see how far my Death Company advance.
Solid.
And Michael had deployed his entire army into one corner. He only had the Impulsor and a unit of Blade Guard in the middle. And then he had Eradicators in the other corner. So I couldn't reach at this point anything decent because of the way that he deployed.
Yeah.
Even with the double move. So I rolled a 1 on my advance, kept one guy within 6 for the start of my turn to get the Massive Doom once per game ability off Ashtorath.
Yep.
And rolled a 1. So I didn't get my 4+ invulnerable save, and I didn't get my +1 to hit, and I actually had to take D3 mortal wounds.
You're starting off strong.
Starting off, very strong.
Yeah.
And I thought, after our weekend or our week of playing, you and I had, then I was like, this game's going to go badly, I can just tell. So anyway, that was that, and I was like, that's not gone well. But litanies did go off, so they did get exploding 6s, and I did get +2 to my charge off, which did slightly, we'll come to later, help. So then I just moved forward to Death Company in their turn, and I went straight into the middle of those, I think there were Incursors, Impulsors, and Blade Guard. I didn't charge the Impulsor because I didn't want the -2, and I would have potentially failed the charge. And then what I did was I advanced all my units right into the middle between the 2 L shapes. All the Sanguinary Guard out in the open, absolutely everything. I left the Colexus back on that objective, popped that banner up, and then popped the other 2 banners up as well. Because he can only be hit on 6s.
Yeah.
And he is a while we stand, we fight. But my opponent's going to have to work really hard to shoot him while he's got 15 or 10 Death Company to sort out as well.
Yeah, so you're going for the old threat saturation there.
Yeah, the best play I did, though, in that first turn was I moved the 2 units of Incursors out. 1 unit I moved within 3 inches of his objective in the corner. And because he didn't have Eradicators within 3 of it, I could put the banner up.
Yeah.
And then I actually then moved the other unit of Incursors forward and declared a charge on the Eradicators to tie them up in combat.
Okay.
So I wrapped them in combat, put up a banner in his corner, and then I declared a charge onto the Incursors and Blade Guard, picked up the unit of Blade Guard and a couple of the Incursors, and then wrapped the Incursors as well. So I had 2 wraps on the Eradicators and there. And at this point, I've got 4 banners up now, and I'm in a really, really strong place turn 1.
Yep. You're really putting your opponent on the back foot. You're really going in hard, kind of in the battle report, you just threw the hammer at him.
Yeah.
Straight off the bat. How did he react?
Yeah, so he spent the 2 CPs for Desperate Breakout on the Incursors.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, wrapping and trapping's dead. It's not. It's really not. I'd wrapped up his Eradicators and then I'm having him to bleed CPs.
Yeah.
So that worked well. And because the Death Company made their charge in by their piling and all that kind of stuff, they also got me engaged on all fronts for that 4th quarter. And then he cleared up all the Death Company, and then his guys with the blast keyword, which I didn't realise, were were those Inceptors with the plasma, and they absolutely, because he's got the Leviathan that shot one of my unit of Sanguinary Guard, and then he put the Inceptors into the other. So I transhuman the first unit against the Leviathan, not knowing that the Inceptors had the blast keyword, and because I've got models over 6 in a unit, he got maximum shots with those Inceptors. So they're getting 6 shots each, which was crazy.
Can he overheat them to make them strength?
You can overcharge them,
well,
yeah. So they're flat damage too.
Wow.
Now, the thing is, which I really don't like personally about the blast keyword, is that for D6 shots, it makes sense. But for D3, it doesn't. I don't see how an Inceptor with an assault weapon should have the blast keyword. I think it should be specific to heavy weapons only. And also, I don't know, it just doesn't work with D3 because it's either nothing or everything. If it was a minimum of 2 shots, that might make a little bit more sense with those plasma or any sort of D3 shots, minimum of 2. But because you've already got redundancy built in with the D3 shots, because typically most thing with a D3 has multiple D3 shots, like the Thunderfire Cannon gets a redundancy built in anyway because it's 4 D3, so you're always going to get a minimum of 4 shots.
Yeah.
So I don't like that, and it really actually caught me out. We checked it, he was super cool with it. And Michael, I think he also had that Lord of Deceit Warlord trait.
Yeah.
And he went to redeploy his 3 units. And I said to him, "Oh, Michael, you can't redeploy there," because he wanted to redeploy in the middle of the table. When you redeploy into your own deployment zone.
Because it's by the standard deployment of
rules. Yes, that's the key wording. And obviously Michael was extremely grateful for the fact that I pointed that out to him before he carried on playing. And it's an easy mistake to make because it just says based on the mission parameters. But obviously you would just assuming cursors can redeploy, but normally, which they can't. But then Michael was super cool with me. I completely forgot. We got to my shooting phase, and I completely forgot to do my psychic phase. And he let me just say, "Look, go back and cast them." So we had a really nice, good game, and exactly how the game should be played, in my opinion. So really, really good. But yeah, he dealt with the Death Company, killed a fair few of the Sanguinary Guard, but really it was my incursors that put the banners up that were doing most of the work for me. And then I was putting pressure on with my bikes to hassle those impulsors that were coming at me as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it got to the point where when Michael did make a play and start to push out from his deployment zone, what I then did was I put my Sanguinary Guard in, and he had an option with his Chapter Master to either hit my Sanguinary Ancient or my unit of 4 Sanguinary Guard.
Okay.
And he was really torn with which one he should fight. And he picked the Sanguinary Ancient because he's given me the rerolls. He's also given me the 5+ Feel No Pain. And then I interrupted and picked up his Chapter Master with my Sanguinary Guard.
Yeah.
And I've got a stratagem which allows all of my D3 damage to become minimum 2. So I popped that on, knowing that I'm probably going to whiff it if I don't, because he's got 6 wounds. Popped it on and took up the Chapter Master. So that's one of his While We Stand We Fights gone. And then also with an Impulsor gone, I think it turned 3, the game was pretty much sealed up.
Yeah.
And then we just talked through what I would do in turn 4. And I just said, look, I'm just going to pull my characters back and, ultimately just make sure I'm going to play defense now. And I think I dropped 3 points on engage because I told him that for turns 3, 4, and 5, I'm only going to get 3. I'm only going to be in 3 quarters, not 4. Because if I try and push it to 4 quarters, I'll probably overstretch myself and start giving up some of my characters.
Yeah.
Whereas I could just escape from his Blade Guard veterans quite quickly with jump packs. I'd scored enough points, so I finished that game on 97 points.
And he finished on
40.
That's a big difference between the two.
Yeah, it was mainly because of turn 1, because I had Mind Cursors on his objective, and then because the Death Company had also kept hassling that middle objective, I kept pushing into there, and then I started to bring my cursors across that I'd already put a banner up into that objective as well. So again, I was just constantly putting a troop on there to stop him from holding it. So because it was a hold 2 mission, I just focused on keeping him into one corner where he mainly deployed most of his army. And that was what I think really held him back.
That's the huge thing about the hold 2, hold 3, because if you become adept to making sure that your opponent's only ever on the one objective, even in the hold 1, hold 2, denying your opponent those points is huge. But to the point where they're getting no points every turn on the primary is a massive wounder.
It is. It's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a big old problem.
But at 40 points, it meant that he still scored relatively well on his secondaries.
Yeah, he deployed well on his secondaries. The one that he couldn't do was deploy scramblers.
Yeah.
Because he was too busy trying to kill me.
Yeah.
Or I was constantly charging him so that, yes, he can fall back and charge me, but he cannot fall back and shoot me. And if he falls back, he can't do an action. So all the incursors he wanted to do an action with, I was constantly just tagging him to stop him from getting those deploy scramblers.
Yeah, so within your list, it's the Sanguinary Guard, the bikes, and the Death Company that do all the heavy lifting, do all the attacking, but your characters and your infantry are really the MVPs in terms of your point scorers.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So that was pretty much that game. But Michael, if you're listening, thank you so much for our game. It was wicked. Really appreciate it.
And so game 2, the mission is surround and destroy.
Yep.
Who was your opponent?
Mike, and Mike was running Orks.
Running Orks.
Yep.
So it was the interesting mission for you. Game 2. So surround and destroy, another Dawn of War style deployment. 2 objectives this time in your deployment zones and 2 objectives in the middle centre line of the board. And it's a hold 1, hold 2.
Yeah.
And
shall I go through Mike's list quickly?
Yeah, give us a quick run through on that.
So Mike was running interesting list, quite popular for 9th edition. It was Death Skulls. He had a big mech with the old custom force field, a big war boss with all the buffs and abilities that you can give him now. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of 10 boys. 3 units of 5 commandos, because the whole army's OBSEC. And then he's got 2 of the shock jump dragsters, and then 4 mech guns, and then he's got the burner bomber, a truck, and then he's got another detachment, which is the Bad Moons. He's got a Weird Boy, some Gretchen, and some tank busters.
It's pretty bad, especially when the whole list is OBSEC.
Yeah, apart from the Evil Sons, like the tank busters, but pretty much the rest of it is all OBSEC, yeah.
And is there any like units in that list that you were especially wary of? Like, I know the burner bomber is quite scary for a lot of people.
Yeah, so turn 1, obviously if his burner bomber goes off, he can go over, drop bombs, and then automatically explode.
Yeah.
And then what that also means is every unit within 6 inches takes an automatic 3 wounds.
Oof.
Like just flat 3. So by the time you've dropped a bomb on a unit and then you've done that, he's putting out a lot of hurt. And my army does not like mortal wounds because I get a good armor save and that's it. And especially my Death Company. So I deployed well. I used what I could of the Ruin. And what I did was I basically said to him, look, we were using a 3-tier Ruin and it happened to be in my deployment zone.
Yep.
I'm not too worried about his shooting.
No.
So I was thinking, right, his tank busters have only got 24-inch range, so he has to jump them. So there is a chance that doesn't go off anyway.
Yep.
And if he wants to get line of sight onto my Death Company, it's going to be a struggle for him. So I basically zoned out my backfield so he couldn't shoot them. So he couldn't drop in those tank busters because it's a big old unit size there. So I used my scouts well and other units. And I basically decided to put my Death Company on the top level, which is 5 inches high. And as long as I'm an inch away from the edge, I'm not within 6 of his base when it explodes.
So they're not going to be taking any hits whatsoever.
They literally can't be targeted. He can fly over me, but he can't bomb them. He can't explode and bomb them that way with the mortal wounds. And then I put the Sanguinary Ancient onto the middle layer, and then I spread out the Sanguinary Guard as wide as I could, so that yes, my Sanguinary Guard would get hit, but because they've got a 5+ fill no plane in 2 wounds each, I would expect on average to lose 1 Sanguinary Guard.
That's pretty good.
That was where I deployed.
That's the best scenario for you, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
In that matchup. So at the beginning of the game, you do your...
Well, what I predicted he was going to take.
Yeah, you do your little mini game before the game begins.
Yeah, sorry, I jumped ahead a bit there with my deployment, didn't I? But
that's right.
So the secondaries I thought you would take, again, engage on all fronts, I think for him and his list is pretty much always going to happen. Again, with this one, I was expecting a raise the banner because he's got 2 in his deployment zone and he can push into that midfield quite comfortably.
And being OBSEC, it's going to be a struggle for you to take those objectives off him.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. But he didn't. He took deploy scramblers.
Which is interesting.
Yep. And then he took assassinate.
Assassinate's a bit of a law for your army because you have got so many characters.
The problem is the list doesn't give up any,
No.
really. And I'd love it if GW changed the one which is basically kill a model, you get a point. I would love it to be kill a wound on a model and you get a point. So if you killed an intercessor, you get 2 points.
Yeah.
And if you killed a guardsman, you get 1 point. But I really want tanks to be taken out of that equation because obviously you can stack it the most. Anyway, we spoke about that before, but I would really like that because actually that would start to hurt my army. It'd be a good pick against me because I've got a lot of 2-wound models.
A lot of the Xenos armies at the moment are struggling when it comes to picking secondaries. So, and especially when Marines have kind of got a pick of the bunch because there is no real bad choices for them. But choosing against Marines is really hard.
Yeah.
But I suppose when people look at Blood Angels army, they just kind of expect you just to chuck everything at them willy-nilly.
And actually, for Mike with his Orks, and again, we had a great game, it wasn't a bad choice because I knew I needed to use my characters in this game.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to be aggressive with them, and I know that Orks can break through my lines and charge me and kill me in combat, so it's not too bad taking Assassinate in a combat-based list, which is quick, mobile, which the Orks are.
Yeah.
So I knew I didn't want to take While We Stand We Fight, because I knew I needed to use my characters. So I went for Grind Them Down, which is basically kill more.
Because he's got all the bodies.
He's got lots of units.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've just got to kill more units, and he kills with me. Bring It Down, because he had the 4 shock attack guns, the flyer, and a truck, and the 2 buggies.
So he's got a lot of small vehicles on the table that are actually quite easy for you to pick up.
I think we worked out it gave up 17. So I was like, cool.
Yeah.
I can concentrate on those. And then I went for Engage in All Fronts. Because again, I know I can do that quite well with Mind Cursors and stuff. So I deployed Mind Cursors straight into the middle of the table. Literally on the middle 2 objectives with the Phobos Librarian. Because again, I can redeploy them back into my own deployment zone. And I left room to do so if I needed to bring them back if I didn't go first. But I did win the roll-off to go first.
Yep.
Mike screened me out really well, so I couldn't touch his tank busters with my Death Company, which were really a problem unit for me.
Yep.
And he also screened out his Burner Bomber, War Boss, and the 2 mech guns.
Yeah.
But what was left open out of all of it was 2 mech guns and the 2 shock jump dragsters.
Yeah.
So I went, and now this is actually funny because I've never had a game like it. I was saying to Mike, I'm really sorry. I don't normally roll like this.
Yeah.
But my rolling was hot. You know, first turn, I went first, obviously. Death Company advanced forward, got a 6 on their advance, so they're moving.
So opposite of the game before.
Yeah, I also got a 6 on my Massive Doom.
So
4+ invulnerable save and +1 to hit for the turn on the Death Company.
It's pretty good.
So they just made an absolute beeline right down the middle. I then advanced the rest of my army into the middle of the table. Again, right out in the open, but just sat on those 2 middle objectives. I left 2 units of scouts in my deployment zone. Again, just to get me those engage in all fronts, really. And then I moved a unit of bikes forward so they could shoot, because I needed to shoot off the screens, you see, of the Orks. But I also moved forward my curses as well. Yeah. So turn 1, I was shooting with both units of bikes. I was charging with both units of incursors. And then I made a 12-inch charge from one of my units of bikes into his unit. And
that's very unlike you.
Very much so. I was like, Mike, I'm so sorry. Normally on the podcast, I joke about my bad dice roll. I know you're not going to believe me after this game. But then I hit him real hard that turn. Again, I was wrapped and trapped a couple of the... I think I even charged him on my Phobos Librarian. I went full on in. Wow. And picked up, I think, 20 boys. And I picked up the two dragsters and then a mech gun. And I wrapped a mech gun.
Yep, so it can't go anywhere and it can't shoot.
Yeah. And then what I did was pretty much, he then countered really well, used his tank busters well, did, some serious damage shooting twice into my Sanguinary Guard. War Boss came over, killed my Death Company. I fought in death with my... And then he made some charges with boys onto my incursors, and he knew he had to kill my incursors, so he fought there first, meaning I could interrupt with my Death Company into his War Boss. Took him down to 1 wound left, and then he killed my Phobos librarian, and then I fought in death and killed him.
It's a good exchange.
And I think he may have fought in death, or one way, someone fought in death and somebody... Yeah. But at the end of it, the war boss and the Phobos librarian were both dead.
Yeah.
So, that was a situation that obviously happened there. And then from that point onwards, I just kind of used my Sanguinary Guardian characters to jump around, grab all the objectives, clear him off the objectives he had cleared me off because he had the jump and things, and just sort of claim the board back.
Yeah. It's a scary thing for... like your army, which is a close combat army, to be so overwhelming versus another close combat oriented army, and for him to leave those units that you've picked as secondaries out in the open was a little bit of a misdeploy on his behalf.
He just didn't have enough screening units.
Yeah.
Because they were on the back of his line, they were behind 20 boys, but because the amount of shots I can put out from the bikes cleared the screen.
Yeah.
And he had to pull them from one side, because obviously of coherency rules. So then I just had a gap that I could go through. So I don't think it was an error, necessarily. Obviously, yes, Orks are a combat army, but he took a burner bomber, which is a shooting bit of kit, 2 dragsters, which are also a shooting bit of kit, and 4 mech guns, and then tank busters. So actually, when you look at that Ork list, it's a 50%... it's actually more points in shooting than it is combat.
It's an impressive choice to go down. But I suppose if he went first, he would have been able to put a lot of damage on you.
Again, I think the burner bomber goes off and kills a Sanguinary Guard. I think he would have claimed the middle of the table. I'm not sure how I'd have played it going second.
No.
Necessarily, and I'd love to do that match. So, Mike, if you ever want a rematch, then yeah, let's do it, and I'll go second.
Yeah, we're a bit short on Orc players in our group at the moment.
Yeah, so because I think I need to see how that game goes going second. But Mike did counter really hard, and literally at the end of turn 1, we had nothing left. It was like the longest turn 1 ever, and then I think Adam came round, was like 1 hour left, guys, and we were like, right, well that's turn 1 done. But then there was nothing left, so turns 2 to 5 were just like super quick. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And what was the final score?
So the final score in that game was 100 for me, and then 25 to the Orks.
That's pretty strong, especially when they say that 100-point victories are quite hard at the moment.
Yeah.
But we're seeing a lot of them coming through at the moment, and for him to only score 25 points, again, that means that you absolutely destroyed him on the primary and denied him those secondaries. Yeah,
so I think he got 1 assassinate point.
Yeah.
I think he may have got the deploy scramblers and a couple of points on the engage. Most of his points came from secondaries.
Yeah.
But yeah, I held... Every time he went on an objective, I cleared him off it. And that's constantly what I was doing. Yeah. And actually an interesting interaction came up in the game where I thought I was holding an objective because I had more models with OBSEC within objective range of him. But turns out, when you read the rules as written, if you both have OBSEC, it just comes down to simply who's got the most models. So I had 3 incursors on it, and he had 1 grot, and then a truck and 1 other model, I think a character. But because he had OBSEC and I had OBSEC, I was pretty sure that I claimed it because I had 3. We had a really good gentleman's discussion about it. So we checked the rule book, first thing you do, right? And I said, rules is written, you are correct. But it just seemed a bit weird that 3 incursors with OBSEC don't overpower 1 model which has got OBSEC and 2 which don't.
Yeah, it does. It's one of those rules intended, rules written kind of discussions.
So we played it as written because we didn't know otherwise, and that's what we did.
But it shows that there are these simple rules interactions that can easily be mistaken.
Yeah.
And I imagine there are a lot of people out there who use that rules. So it's a good clarification for them. Yeah,
and the best thing to do is just go, I said, oh, look, I'm Michael, I think you're right. I think I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Let's go with what you think. I'm cool with that. Like, there's no point going, oh, well, and getting all salty about it. Just take it on the chin. I hadn't read that interaction, and it's one of those things that's so situational that rarely comes up anyway.
Yeah, and that's like a sportsmanship player kind of thing. If there is a discussion that needs to be had, check the rules first.
Yeah.
After that, check with the TO. But once it's done,
move on.
It's done. Move on.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of players that will sit and dwell on that, and it'll completely and it will tilt them.
It's not. I think a lot of people got to remember that just because you get something wrong, it's not a judgment of character that you're a cheat or you're, you just got a rule wrong.
Yeah.
And like what I did wasn't wrong, and what he did wasn't wrong. We discussed it like two adults. And we looked at it, read it, and go, cool, that's how this game is meant to be played. It's literally that simple.
Nice.
But you don't have to get funny about it. I don't feel personally offended because I was wrong, because I was.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we carried on. We had a great game. And again, Mike, we need to get a rematch where you go first, mate, I think, with those Orks.
Yeah. So you are now 2 wins.
2 wins at the moment, yeah. And I've got 197 points total in the bag so far.
It's a strong lead.
Which I was very pleased about.
Yeah.
Because in an RTT, if I lose my next game, it's going to come down to points. Yeah. So I knew the reason why I was pleased about having 197 points on the table was because I was currently the top scorer.
Yeah.
Now, I was thinking straight away, okay, cool. I'm going to think very tactically how I win this RTT.
Yeah.
Because I can look at my next opponent's score, who had a win and a loss. So I was playing against the next highest player, who already had a win and a loss for the day. Now that means that I can look at his points, and all I can do, as long as I score more points than he can total. Yeah. So assuming if he gets 100 points out of this next game, how many points do I need to score in order to still win it?
Yeah.
Or how many points do I need to deny him so I can win this game? So that was how I looked at it, accepting I could lose it, but still win the event. In that way, you go into the next game fully prepared, knowing what's the minimum amount I need to do to be successful here, and I could take a loss and still win it by points. So that was my game plan. If I could win it by winning 3 games, of course I'm going to try, and I'm going to try my best. But I was up against a really good player called Simon. We've met each other many, many times at events, but never played. But we were super both pleased to get this game in under our belt. And Simon was running a Drukhari Coven army, Prophets of Flesh, 4+ invulnerable save, which is a dreadful matchup for me because I've got really good AP, but I can't get through that 4+ invulnerable save very well.
Yeah, and everything in like the Coven's list, and there's a lot of damage too in there as well.
Yeah,
which puts a lot of hurt on you.
So he had 2 units of 5 grotesques. He had 2 units of 3 Talos, loads of racks, 2 raiders with racks in, and then a reaper in the backfield with a couple of homunculuses. So that was pretty much Simon's list. And
by the way, the mission,
sweep and clear,
was sweep and clear. Fun story. I picked this mission. There was a small mistake on the rules pack. So Anna came up to me. It's like, what mission do we do? Game 3, and I'd lost my second game, so I just kind of threw
caution to the wind.
Caution to the wind. I was like, I might be playing my friend Simon in the next one. I haven't played him in years. We're just going to have a nice chill game.
Sweep and clear.
Sweep and clear is my favourite. Yeah. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, so I was playing sweep and clear as well.
Yeah.
And sweep and clear is my favourite for engage on all fronts because it's so easy. You only have to move a unit an inch and you get your engage on all fronts.
And it's a hold 1, hold 2, hold more.
Beautiful. And
the secondary for this mission is also one of my favourites, and I wish they made this an actual secondary.
Yeah.
It scores 3 victory points if you control either the objective marker in the centre of the battlefield or the objective marker in your opponent's deployment zone, or you score 5 victory points if you hold both.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and it's a good mission.
Yeah.
Yeah, and your opponent was Simon, running Drukhari. So the pre-game mini game.
Yeah, so Simon, I was thinking, right, I'm just going to have a quick look at your army. And Simon said, I'm going to go for... And I said, Simon, shut up. I said, in the nicest possible way, do not tell me anything right now, because I still haven't decided on my secondaries. And if you mention 2 of the secondaries that you could well mention, it will be extremely hard for me to pick secondaries in a non-biased way already knowing that I just need to deny him points to win the tournament. So I said, Simon, please don't tell me anymore. Him saying to me that he's going to take an engage in all fronts doesn't matter because I knew he's going to take it anyway and there's nothing I can do to stop it.
No.
But he said, okay, cool. I won't say any more then. And I said, let me have a think. And I went back and I said, okay, I could see he'd written his down, on his bit of paper, so I knew he couldn't change his. And I went for bring it down, raise the banners, and engage in all fronts again.
Yeah.
So I didn't take while we stand, we fight. I was expecting him to take the mission one, engage in all fronts, and maybe deploy scramblers because it works quite well with the homunculus or the coven that you can redeploy your racks with and stuff. So that was what I was expecting. But his third choice was assassinate.
Yeah.
And I said to Simon, look, if you'd have told me you were taking assassinate, I would have just took while we stand, we fight. I'd have put all 3 characters into reserve until turn 3, brought them down. I would have gone second. So you've got turns 4 and 5 to try and kill me, which you're not going to be able to, or very unlikely to. And I'm going to win this game because there's going to be a 30-point differential straight away.
Yeah.
So I'm going to win this tournament, win this game, and you're not going to have a chance because you said you're taking assassinate. For me then, do I not take while we stand, we fight? Like, what happens? Do I then not pick it?
I think you have to. It's a weird interaction, kind of like what we discussed in the tilting podcast before. Because your opponent has acted in a specific way. Yeah. Are you morally obliged to do something in the negative to you to make them feel better? Yeah. So I think you were right to tell him not to tell you anymore. Yeah. Yeah. But it's one of those situations where if your opponent doesn't give you time to tell them, like, stop what you're doing, then I think maybe their intention is like this is what I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it regardless to whatever you take. Yeah. So you pick whatever. Yeah, and I think again, like, Simon was really appreciative of that, and he could sort of see why when I explained it that there would be a 30-point differential that. I can just sit on some objectives, score some primary points, and we'll call it done. That's not a game I want to win. That's also a game I don't want to play because that doesn't tactically challenge me. No. But on the same point, so I think I did the right thing there. And anyway, so Simon won the roll-off to go first, chose to go first, and Simon obviously went for engage, assassinate, the scramblers as well. He was quite aggressive with his army. Which you would be with all those grotesques and Taos. Yep. So I redeployed my army, my 3 units of... I actually spent 2 CPs to put Death Company in a ruin, like to push them into the middle of the table. Yeah. Outside of his threat range, which I worked out at the time, I can't remember off the top of my head now. So basically his Talos couldn't charge me turn 1. Mm-hmm. And I then made sure that the Death Company were hidden from his Reapers, Raiders and stuff. So spending the 2 CPs was worth it. Redeployed my Phobos Librarian and my Cursors back into my deployment zone because there's no point if they stay in the corners. I'm then giving him a free move in the charge phase with his grotesques to reach out onto objectives that it then stretches me further. Yeah. So I'm trying to condense him in one place by not giving him those free charges. So I redeployed, put them back safe. So again, they're out of charge range. Turn 1, he moves all his racks on the centre to obviously deny me that. He moves his raiders on the quarter ones in no man's land. So I'm only on 1 objective at the start of my turn. And he's currently on 4. Then he charges a raider into my unit bikes. Okay. Which were basically on the circle. Yeah. He had done that for engaging all fronts. And also to stop my bikes from charging. Because I can't fall back and charge. No. And I can't fall back and shoot either. It was a good play. He just didn't know I could heroically intervene within 6 inches. So you managed to actually leapfrog a unit straight into him. So I spent the CP. Yeah. And the Death Company within 6 inches. So they move forward 6 inches, moving towards a close enemy model. And I just made sure the hammers were the closest thing, picked up the raider, and then, used the extra pile-in and the consolidation that I get from my Ashtaroth to make sure that I was then pushing into the middle of the table. So he lost out on the engage in all fronts then?
I did tell Simon I had it.
Yeah.
And I said, Simon, if you want to do something different, I'm happy for you to do so. Because we got to the point where he made his charge, and I said, Simon, just to let you know, I am within 6 inches here. I can heroically intervene. He didn't have any further charge to, get any further away from me.
Yeah.
But he said, look, I would have still done the same thing anyway.
Yeah.
So again, we had a really good bit of, back and forth about that. I don't think Simon felt like I tried to, there wasn't a gotcha moment. Like, I did say, I've got this stratagem I can use. But anyway, and then I just made a really good charge with the Death Company into his Talos. And the way you handle Talos when you've got 2 units with something like a Death Company unit, and a lot of people don't like Death Company. There's a lot of hate towards them. I'm in the Blood Angel, community chat, and a lot of people really don't like them. And they're like, yeah, too fragile. Rapping Trapping's dead. They just die. And I completely disagree. I think they're just such a good unit. And basically, I put 2 hammers on one unit, 3 hammers on another, and I picked up 4 Talos, 2 from each unit. So now Simon wants to spend 2 CPs to interrupt, by all means. Yeah. But you're only interrupting with 1 Talos into what is, some Sanguinary Guard with a 4+ save, 5+. I don't think I had the 5+ invulnerable save or Feel No Pain in range. Yeah. But okay, I lose a few Sanguinary Guard, but not many. But then in return, you lose all 6 Talos. Yeah. And then I push my bikes out and incursors into the... and my characters. I actually used my characters in this game to pick up the raiders that were in No Man's Land. Yeah. So I focused on one, picked up one, put all the Sanguinary Guard straight into the... and I used my bikes to move block his grotesques. Yeah. So the only thing he could charge were my bikes, because my bikes are my throwaway units. I just used them to move block the grotesques.
They're an incredibly resilient throwaway unit as well.
Yeah, they take a bit of getting through. So that was that game, and again, me and Simon had a really, really nice game. Simon managed to get his deploy scramblers off because I just left my backfield open, and I don't think he got any assassinate points. I don't think, but he did get lots of engage points.
Yeah. So he had. What was the final points on that?
So the final one on that was 36 to Simon and 100 to me again.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so Raise the Banners. Raise the Banners was interesting because I could only put 1 up turn 1. Yeah. But then I managed to get banners up in the corner and the middle in turn 2 using characters and things to get banners up like the Collector's Assassin. Yeah. And then, because I'd overrun his deployment zone, in the last turn of the game, I managed to get 5 banners up. Yeah. So then at the end of the game, because you're controlling those 5, you get an additional 5 points. So I made up for all the secondaries that I'd lost because I got 5 banners up at the end of the game. So that was nice. Engaging all fronts, very easy on this one, especially as I went aggressive with my army, pushing into all those quarters. And bring it down, well, that was the other one I went for. Killed the 2 raiders, killed the Reaper, and killed 6 Talos.
Yeah, 6 Talos, just giving up a nice comfortable 12 points.
Yeah, so that was, again, quite situational that, bring it down came off well. But I was really happy with how I played. I don't think I made many mistakes throughout the tournament that I can really look back on and think...
Well, I think on 200 points and a 97, there's not really much you can say that you did overly wrong. Is there anything that you would change in your list going forward? Obviously, we know that the new Marine meta is on the way, and it's going to be more aimed towards...
Yeah, so there's a new book coming out for Blood Angels. Yeah. I could make some changes in my list at the moment. Whether I take a 3rd unit of Sanguinary Guard or the 2 units of bikes is 6 of one, half a dozen another. Either way I play it out, it doesn't change. What I mean by that is, I think sometimes you get too obsessed with making a list change, when actually, if I'd have had a 3rd unit of Sanguinary Guard instead of 2 units of bikes, would I have won or lost any of these games? Would it have changed the result? No. Maybe I don't score 100 points, maybe I score 98. Yeah. But the result's still the same, right? Yeah. Now, I can make changes in this list. So when the codex drops, if the points go up, I will keep everything. Yeah. But what I can drop is I can drop the incursors for scouts because they do the same role, just not quite as well. Yeah. I can drop the assassin.
Yeah.
And I could potentially take a Judicer for the same fight last reason. Or I could drop it entirely. But then I just have to play against Death Guard in a different way. And we don't even know if the Death Guard is still going to have that ability to make all units fight at sort of non-charging order anyway.
Yeah.
So we don't even know if they're still going to have that ability, because the only reason why I've got the Collector's Assassin in the list is for that. So if they don't have it, that's 100 points I can play with. I can drop the Incursors down to Scouts. They drop me 35 points per unit at the moment. So again, that just helps me out there. If Scouts become elite options and not troops, could be problematic.
Yeah.
That'll be a really big change I'd have to consider, because I'd have to drop the 2 units of Scouts, which is 140 points, and just put in a third unit of Incursors for another 105.
Yeah.
So that's another alteration I could make. So there's some options I can take in terms of changes. Yeah.
But you're keeping the core of the army the same. So the Death Company, the characters, and the Sanguinary Guard.
Yeah, that is going to stay the same.
Good.
Some points change might swap about on weapons and stuff, but ultimately, yeah.
Very good.
Nice, mate.
Yeah.
So yeah, finished in first place at that RTT, and then also I was top scorer of all the RTTs.
Yeah. So you are the overall big winner.
The big winner.
The big winner, yeah.
I'll take that, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was really happy with them. And nice to know that, I've been talking about Blood Angels a lot, and obviously, it was nice to see it all come together.
Yeah.
Everything that I thought in practice, everything that I've been practicing, all the secondaries, everything that I'm teaching, it was great. Like I went away from that weekend thinking I had 3 great games, great sportsmanship across all those games. There was no gotcha moments. And it was really a weekend for me that really summarised everything that I love about 40k, and everything that, I really, try to encourage other people to play in that same way. And I was literally over the moon with not only the result, but more about the conduct of people's play, and that I just had 3 super chilled games and had a great weekend.
That's awesome.
Thanks Adam, and thanks Entoyment as well, which are also our show sponsors, which are great. So thank you so much for Entoyment for sorting us out with helping us out with models and keeping the channel growing. And if you do want, to get your online models from somewhere, I definitely recommend Entoyment. They're super friendly. They're based in Poole as well, so they can ship anywhere. And the great thing about them is they have a live stock order. Yeah, so what you see on the website is what they got. So you're not waiting weeks and weeks and weeks for something. You get it if it's in stock, which I think is really handy when you are buying online. And you can also grab yourself a bit of discount as well.
Yeah, and if you ever go to the shop itself, they sell pizza.
They do sell pizza.
Yeah. Which is a big win for me.
Yeah, you do love your pizza, mate.
Yeah.
But did you have a good weekend?
I had a great weekend. I went 2 wins and 1 loss, and I came second in my pod. I actually, in the 3rd game, I beat the gentleman who won my pod.
Yeah.
Which was a weird one, because so many of us went 2 and 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is quite good, because it shows that it was a really balanced group of guys, and all the lists were really different.
Yeah, and obviously they use a mixture of terrain. Most of it was made by Foreground, whether it's the kits that we use, and obviously I've helped design here and had some input on, or some of the other kits as well. So the terrain was great, and ultimately fantastic weekend, and well done for coming second. That's great work with your Drukhari.
Yeah, I took a bit more of a varied list than last time. So last time I took the 9 Talos and the 15 Incubi and my characters and stuff, and this time around I went for a more of a Cabalite themed one. So I put the 3 Ravagers back in and went down to 6 Talos, just because I felt the army really missed out on shooting.
Okay.
And everyone says that the Disintegrators aren't that good on Ravagers, but I disagree. Okay. I think the Blackheart ones with the reroll ones on the hit and wound still do a lot of hurt, and they still carve through Space Marines.
It'll be interesting to see if they get the core keyword.
I really hope they do, because each sub-faction within Drukhari has so few choices, really, and there's so many mercenaries within them.
Yeah.
If those few non-mercenary units lose the core keyword, the only units that would benefit from a character's reroll would be a unit of Cabalites.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, that's true. And also the you might find that something like there are detachments or not detachments. There are cabals, aren't they? That is it like flayed skull?
Yeah, which gives you reroll ones on poison weapons when you're in transports.
Yeah, but that might, I'm sure there's some things that might come up that they might have. Their vehicles might get the core.
Yeah.
Who knows? So, or there might be options where you can spend a CP and make them. So, anyway, it's going to be really, really interesting. But well done again, mate. And guys, thanks so much for listening. Obviously, if you do love the podcast, then please do leave us a review, as it really does mean a lot to us. It helps the channel grow. And please keep sharing it with your network, amongst groups that you're in, and all that good stuff. And we'll see you on another podcast. So take care, and we'll see you soon.
This podcast is sponsored by Foreground Publishing, who are the leading designers and manufacturers of tabletop pre-painted terrain. Check out the VT Terrain series, which is perfect for competitive 40k games. Just unbox, build, and play.